The first crack in my world didn't sound like a crack at all. It was a laugh, soft, breathy, muffled through drywall, coming from my own bedroom when I knew I wasn't the one who made it. I froze halfway up the staircase, one hand on the railing, the other clutching the grocery bag slowly tearing at the bottom. A single apple thudded against the tile as I strained to hear again. My heart slammed so hard I felt it in my teeth. Another sound, not a laugh this time. A whisper, a voice I knew too well. Emily, my wife of 12 years. And then another voice, lower, male, unmistakably familiar. Ethan, our neighbor. The bag slipped from my hand. Or maybe my fingers simply stopped obeying commands. Everything spilled across the stays. Fruit rolling, a container of pasta sauce bursting open like a gunshot. But the sound didn't matter. Nothing mattered except that unmistakable creak of our bed frame above me. My throat tightened until breathing felt optional. A part of me tried to rationalize, to whisper lies I could swallow. Maybe she's helping him. Maybe he's hurt. Maybe... No. People don't whisper like that unless they are doing something they shouldn't survive. I didn't walk up the stairs. I fled, out the door, through the porch, onto the cold pavement, tasting metal and shock. I didn't even remember grabbing my keys. But I remembered standing on the street, hands trembling, staring at the warmly lit windows of the house I paid for, built memories in, believed in. And they were in there, making new ones of their own. I drove around for hours, but the memories played in loops. The laugh, the whisper, the bed. Raw disbelief hollowed into anger, then surged into fear. What if I had walked in? What if Emily had screamed my name? What if Ethan had smirked? What if? The thought spiraled until rage and heartbreak blurred into one pulsing ache. At 11:42 p.m., I finally parked in front of the house next door instead of my own. My chest tightened when I realized why. Because someone else needed to know. Because someone else deserved truth. And because some part of me, dark, bruised, primal, knew I didn't want to be alone in this rage. I rang the bell. When the door opened, Sarah, Ethan's wife, stood there in an oversized sweater, her hair pulled back messily, holding a cup of chamomile tea. She blinked in surprise. "Mark, everything okay?" No, nothing was okay. Everything was broken. But the words tangled. "Can we talk?" I forced out. She searched my expression, something tightening in her jaw, and stepped aside. "Come in." Inside, the house smelled like cinnamon and eucalyptus. Warm, comforting, safe. The opposite of what mine felt like right now. We sat in the living room. Her tea steamed between us. Her eyes, kind but tired, studied my shaking hands. "Mark, what happened?" My breath shivered. "Emily," I said, "and Ethan." The names felt poisonous on my tongue. "Tonight, in my house." Sarah didn't react with shock. Not exactly. Her face fell instead with something like confirmation. Like she had hoped she was wrong but knew better. Her silence said enough. "You knew," I whispered. Her eyes glistened. "I suspected for months." My stomach dropped. "Months?" She nodded weakly, placing her tea down before her trembling fingers spilled it. He'd come home smelling like her perfume, or he'd rush outside whenever she texted. And the excuses, she shook her head, breath-breaking. But I never had proof, just nightmares. Nightmares. The word struck deep. I wasn't alone in the horror. We sat in heavy silence, two broken people staring at the unfixable pieces of their lives. Then she said something that changed everything. "I'm done letting them control the narrative." I lifted my eyes. "What do you mean?" She leaned forward, voice lower, steadier, edged with surprising steel. "If they want to destroy us, fine. But they don't get to walk away clean. They don't get to rewrite history or make us feel small." Her jaw clenched. "We take back control." Something fierce stirred inside me, something that felt dangerously close to Piper's. "What are you thinking?" I asked. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Not revenge for the sake of revenge. Revenge for the sake of truth. And just like that, I found myself nodding. Over the next hour, we talked, awkward at first, then with the uncensored honesty of two people whose lives had imploded. I told her about the groceries spilling, the whispers through the door. She told me about Ethan's growing coldness, the late nights working, the silent dinners where his guilt twisted into irritation. I felt a strange comfort listening to her. Not attraction, not yet, but connection, the kind that blooms in shared ruins. At one point I asked, "Why didn't you tell me you suspected something?" She swallowed, "Because I hoped I was wrong, and because I didn't want to hurt you if it wasn't true." There it was again, the kindness, real, undeserved kindness from the woman whose husband was sleeping with my wife. A bitter laugh escaped me. "It's messed up that you were protecting me while Emily—" Her hand, surprisingly warm, touched mine. "Mark, their choices aren't yours to carry." My throat tightened. I looked away before she saw too much, but she already had. Then she said softly, "Let's expose them, smartly, quietly, so they never see it coming." That was the exact moment our alliance, dangerous, fragile, was born. At 1:08 a.m., I finally returned to my house. The bedroom light was off. Emily was pretending to sleep. Of course she was. I stood in the doorway for a long time, watching her rise and fall with calm, even breaths. The same breath she must have taken hours earlier while lying beside another man, a man who lived 20 steps away. She shifted slightly, eyelashes fluttering. "Mark!" Her voice was soft, laced with stage drowsiness. "You were home late. Everything okay?" "Yes," I lied, my tone flat. "Just couldn't sleep." She smiled faintly in the dark, the kind of smile she used to give me after long, warm Sundays together. Now it made my skin crawl. I slipped into bed beside her, but kept my body tense, unmoving, pointed away. As she drifted into what she probably believed was peaceful sleep, my mind replayed Sarah's whispered promise. "Let's expose them, smartly, quietly, so they never see it coming." For the first time that night, I felt steady. Not healed, not okay, but steady, because pain with purpose is different than pain alone. And tomorrow, the planning would begin. The next morning, Emily kissed my cheek as if nothing had happened. Her lips were warm, gentle, familiar, yet all I felt was cold. She brewed coffee humming softly, barefoot on the tiles, her hair tied loosely the way I used to love. The sunlight caught the gold strands, and for a moment, the memory of what we once were tried to tug me backward. But the truth stood louder. When she wasn't looking, when she leaned against the counter scrolling through her phone, no doubt checking if Ethan had messaged, I watched her with something close to detachment. Not hatred, not even heartbreak, just clarity. If I confronted her now, she'd lie. If I shouted, she'd cry. If I begged, she'd deny. I knew her patterns. I had lived inside her world long enough to know she wasn't ready to confess because she didn't believe she'd been caught. And that alone told me something important. She thought I was predictable, but I wasn't anymore. By noon, I was sitting across from Sarah at a quiet cafe 2 towns over, far from the eyes of curious neighbors or, worse, our cheating spouses. She wore a gray coat and a resolve that surprised me. "I didn't sleep," she admitted, wrapping her hands around her mug. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them. "Yeah," I breathed. "Same." For a few seconds, we just sat there, bound by the shared ache neither of us asked for. Then she took a steady breath. "We need proof. Real proof. Something undeniable. Something they can't twist." I nodded. "Agreed." "And," she continued carefully, "we need to protect ourselves. Legally, emotionally, everything. If we confront them without planning, they'll gaslight us. They'll turn it around. They'll say we're being paranoid." I stared at her, realizing she wasn't driven by spite. She was driven by survival. "What do you suggest?" I asked. She slid her phone across the table. A folder was open. Inside were screenshots, call logs, text notifications, timestamp photos of Ethan slipping out late at night. "You've been collecting evidence," I whispered. "When you love someone," she said quietly, "you hope you're wrong, but you prepare in case you're right." Her voice cracked on the last word, and for a moment I saw the depth of her hurt, not sharp like mine, but slow and decaying, like something that had been dying inside her for months. I reached across the table, covering her hand. "You're not alone in this." She didn't pull away. That afternoon, we crafted a plan, not reckless vengeance, but a controlled unraveling. Gather undeniable proof. Let Emily and Ethan expose themselves through their own carelessness. Present everything at once, at the moment of maximum impact. Leave them with no room to rewrite the story. Sarah suggested the perfect opportunity, a neighborhood barbecue Ethan had volunteered to host that coming Saturday. Nearly everyone on our street would be there, including Emily. They'll think they are safe, Sarah said. They always do in public. And that's when we ended. I finished. We exchanged a look, somber, united, dangerous. In the days leading up to the barbecue, I played my role perfectly. I smiled at Emily, cooked dinner, listened to her stories, pretended not to see her slip outside for phone calls she thought I didn't notice. Every lie she told slipped off her tongue smoother than the last. If I hadn't known the truth, maybe I would have missed it. Maybe I would have believed she was stressed, busy, tired, but betrayal sharpens your vision. Her guilt came out in needless kindness, extra touches, false affection, sudden compliments. I could feel the tension under her sweetness, a frantic attempt to keep me from noticing her wandering heart. Meanwhile, Sarah and I met twice more. We collected screenshots, messages, recordings, every breadcrumb they'd left in their arrogance. With each piece of evidence, the fog inside me lifted, replaced by something steady and sharp. Not revenge, not rage, just certainty. By Friday night, we were ready. Saturday arrived warm, bright, deceptively cheerful. The kind of day meant for laughter and grilled burgers and easy conversations. Ethan's backyard buzzed with neighbors. Children ran across the grass. Music drifted from portable speakers. The smell of barbecue smoke and fresh-cut grass filled the air. Emily stood beside me, smiling too brightly, touching me too often. Ethan glanced at her when he thought no one was looking. She glanced back. Their secret was a thread stretched tight, ready to snap. Sarah appeared beside me. "You ready?" she whispered. I swallowed hard. "Yeah." My hands weren't trembling anymore. We walked toward the patio table where Ethan had left his phone charging while he manned the grill. Emily was busy chatting with two neighbors, unaware. Sarah's eyes met mine. "Do it." So I did. I picked up Ethan's phone, entered the passcode Sarah had discovered months earlier, and opened the messages. There they were. Dozens of them. "Emily, when can I see you? I miss you." Ethan, "Tonight. Same time. Same place." Emily, "He'll never find out." Ethan, "I hope not. I like how dangerous this feels." Emily, "You make me feel alive again." My hands tightened around the phone. But the pain wasn't stabbing anymore. It was steady, controlled, like pressing down on a bruise until it goes numb. Sarah took the phone from me and raised her voice. "Everyone, can I have your attention?" Conversation stilled. Heads turned. Emily stiffened from across the yard. My chest rose and fell in shallow breaths. Sarah held up the phone. "There's something Mark and I need to share." Emily's voice cut through the silence. "Sarah, what are you doing?" But Sarah was calm, steady. She tapped the screen. The messages, enlarged and undeniable, lit up for everyone to see. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Whispers followed like aftershocks. Emily's face drained of color. Ethan dropped the spatula, his mouth open, panic carving new lines in his expression. I stepped forward. "This is what they've been doing behind our backs." Emily shook her head violently. "Mark, please, this isn't. This is taken out of context." "Really?" Sarah shot back. "Which context? The affair or the lies?" Ethan moved toward Sarah. "This isn't fair. We should talk privately." "No," she said sharply. "You made this public the moment you crawled into another woman's bed." Emily grabbed my arm. "Mark, listen to me." I looked at her, really looked. Her desperation, her fear, her guilt. But not once did I see love. "We're done," I said simply. A silence heavier than the crowd's judgment settled between us. Emily broke. "Please." "Mark, don't do this. We can fix it." "You already broke it," I said quietly. "And you did it with someone who lived 20 steps away." The neighbors watched in stunned, uncomfortable silence, but none of them interrupted. This was truth. This was justice. Ethan tried reaching for Sarah, but she stepped back. I'm filing for divorce. And I am too, I said. Emily's knees wobbled. Ethan's face hardened. But none of that mattered anymore. This was the ending they'd owned. An hour later, the backyard was nearly empty. Chairs overturned. Music silenced. The food left untouched. Sarah and I stood near the gate. You okay? She asked softly. No, I answered honestly. But I will be. He nodded. Same. A gentle wind moved her hair, and in her eyes I saw not the beginning of some rebound romance, not a replacement for what we'd lost, but someone who understood the shape of my pain because she carried the same one. Thank you, I said. For what? She whispered. For standing with me when everything fell apart. Her eyes softened. You stood with me, too. We shared a quiet moment. Nothing romantic, nothing rushed, just two survivors breathing in the first hint of freedom. Whatever comes next, I said, we face it honestly. She smiled faintly. No more secrets. And as we walked out of the yard together, toward separate houses, separate futures, I felt something I hadn't felt since the night everything cracked. Peace. Not happiness. Not closure. But peace. A beginning born from the ruins. And for now, that was enough.